thanks for taking the time to come and listen to me this morning. Quick introduction about myself. My name's Justin Day. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Cloud Gateway. We are a secure connectivity platform in the SASE space, is where we will be very shortly. We securely connect multiple clouds, multiple networks, the HSCN, the PSN, and all of those good things. But I don't really want to dwell on that. I want to go straight into talking about how to achieve a digital foundation for your digital transformation. So first things first, I think we should take a look back at the last 12 months, and we should probably look at some positivity before we look at anything too negative outside of the obvious, of course. We have been very reactive. I think it's fair to say that we have had to react. You know, that is the very nature of essentially what we've had put in front of us, and I think we should, in many ways, celebrate that. I think we should be aware of all of the positive things we've done, all of the positive things that we've done technically. You know, it goes without saying, obviously, what we've done in the health service, but we should look at those things positively as the grounding for what we need to take forward. When we needed to react, we did. We've demonstrated we could do things that previously we've probably thought that we couldn't, and there could have been many reasons for that, which we'll touch upon. But moving from the positive to let's call it a neutral and not negative, what we have really seen is that in many ways we are behind the curve from a digital transformation perspective, and the way to get ourselves in a position to be able to embrace digital transformation is, of course, have a foundation for us to be able to do that. And I think the positive, of course, is yes, how we've reacted, but it has shown that we are wanton in a lot of areas, and I think that we can take that as a positive if we act over the coming years. Not just, you know, this isn't just a COVID thing. This is the entire health service. This is all about digital transformation. This is about how we take all of those things moving forward. So, you know, talking here to a couple of these bullets, tech as an enabler. Now, I know that sounds kind of obvious, but I like to talk about that as a specific point, because when we talk about tech being an enabler, one of the things that often causes a problem in and around digital transformation is letting tech lead requirements. I think some of the problems that we have seen again in the last year, but also, you know, in a pre-COVID world, is that we've allowed ourselves to embrace technology at the wrong time. Sometimes we look at technology that we want to move forward with, and we're flying the flag for something that's very positive. Of course it is, but we're not actually necessarily looking at the requirements for why we need these technologies. Are they meeting what we need? Are they ultimately helping us with what we want in order to move forwards? And that's something that we'll touch on as we go through the slides. But what we have seen is that we need to be able to act fast at any point, whether it is reactive, like what we've seen, or whether it's to move forward proactively, but continue to improve all of those functions, of course, of the health service. So, on to the next. Try again. Okay. So, let's look at the question, what actually is digital transformation? I know, again, that might sound a bit odd, but everybody has a slightly different take on what the answer to that is. To me, digital transformation is being able to use technology to allow you and your business, or of course your business units, your hospitals, your surgeries, your clinics, to evolve, to improve at the pace that suits you. That ultimately is what digital transformation is. A lot of people lean on digital transformation being this throwing forward of tech. It's tech, and it's cloud. That isn't necessarily what digital transformation is. It's about using the right tool for the right job at the right time. It's, does it meet the set of requirements that we have? Again, back to tech being an enabler. Is tech the enabler of the requirement we have, not is the requirement meeting a new shiny technology. And this isn't just limited to tech. This is also cultural. And what do we mean by cultural? So cultural is, I think, of two good examples when I think of cultural. One is based around risk appetite. So risk appetite would be something like where historically you've dealt with bigger companies because they are a safer bet, they deliver bigger technology, but with them comes potentially the natural kind of cumbersome approach to things, or a lack of innovation, or things take the time they take. Working with SMEs, you know, I've had frankly the honour in the last year of working with a number of small health techs. We're talking 2 or 3 or 4 people who are pioneering innovation. But they're small companies. They're small companies with very little money behind them, and it's about embracing that risk, understanding that you get a great reward for what may or may not actually be a risk. That's a cultural change, and something that we're seeing a lot of, but something we also need to embrace. Another cultural change, the one of course we've seen the most of over the last year, is remote working. Remote working, I don't like even using the term remote anymore, because it infers that there must be a central base and I am away from it. Of course, I appreciate there are many areas of the health service, for example, where that's not necessarily something that can be achieved, but we have been forced to embrace that. We've been forced to embrace a cultural change, and it's paid dividends. Speaking for Cloud Gateway, it's allowed us to make fundamental changes, do different things, save time on travel, all sorts of things like this, which has allowed us to move forwards. It's allowed people to feel more comfortable in being able to deliver what they deliver in a way that they deliver, and embracing that actually is a trickle down or trickle up effect on the greater part of digital transformation. Talking about a couple of these points as well, when we talk about moving to the foundation, which is what we'll come to. What does that foundation look like? I don't want to touch too much on the HSCN. It would be easy for me to talk about that coming from a network background. What I would say about the HSCN is it performs a fantastic function, but it is not a foundation for digital transformation. It is in many ways a stepping stone network to allow cross-health service connectivity. That's very much what it is. Yes, it provides function, allows you to consume services, but in itself, that is not the foundation. Does a great job, provides that connectivity, but it shouldn't be seen as that. So I would invite people to look beyond the HSCN if you're thinking, well, I think that's kind of my foundation, that's what I'm building on. It's not, and that's very much the driver of NHSD as well. Is that it isn't that. We have to look to that next stage to be able to move forward. So we need that foundation to be able to build into digital transformation, which allows us to embrace all of those technical services, applications, whatever they may be, that enable our requirements. So let's look at a couple of case studies that we've been lucky enough to work with these guys over the last with QDoctor over the last 12 months. QDoctor provide ultimately a remote service such that GPs and people, the patients, can communicate via video services, remote being the key here. This is something that QDoctor, of course, were working on in a pre-COVID world. I think it would be important to say that it's something that they were looking at long before COVID, but of course COVID really accelerated the need for what they deliver. When doctors are sent home, and of course patients are at home, and we don't really want people moving about, the ability to effectively run a remote surgery, a remote clinic in many ways, not only was important before, but became even more important. So what foundation did we have? How did we work with those guys to be able to deliver that? Well, I'm going to touch on 2 key things. I think it's the speed of delivery and the ability to scale. Being able to take cloud-based initiatives, the sort of things that we expect from cloud when we talk about applications and services, but bring those into the foundation, bring those into the network layer, the the boring necessary evil layer, but being able to bring that in as well. When we spoke to the guys at QDoctor, they had within days, of course, they had a need to bring this very quickly to the forefront, and for us, not a problem, because we essentially build everything in software. We take very different approaches to how we build on top of the physical infrastructure as well. So we could deliver that in hours rather than what would typically be months. Where is it also important from a scale perspective? Well, from a scale perspective, QDoctor is growing. They have more and more GPs and more people who want to use this service. I'm sure it will be equally as in demand, if not vastly more in demand, in a post-COVID world. So they need to be able to grow, and growth needs to be immediate. This is effectively affecting to the benefit of people's lives. And so we have that, again, built on cloud tenets, even at a network and a foundation level, means that we're button pushing to be able to grow with immediate effect. So really great working with those guys over the last year. I'm looking forward to the future working with them as well. A slightly different case study is the guys we work with at Sensign Health. So we started working with these guys before COVID. It's very difficult not to talk about a world that's pre and post COVID. It kind of becomes habitual. We're working with them pre-COVID. They are probably a gross disservice to the amazing work that they do, but essentially they have AI-driven software that allows them to be able to take vital signs and information from the bedside, from patients, of course, who are in the hospital, and it allows them to make decisions based on, the data, the big data that they have, the AI that they can spin around that to send guidance and advice back to the bedside, to the nurses, the doctors, the carers, to specifically, in this instance, provide an early warning system around cardiac arrest. It is an absolutely fascinating piece of software. It is amazing to be a part of it. And in this case, when we talk about the foundation for that digital transformation, for them, they again have built their software in cloud. They need to be able to make changes on the fly. They can't afford to wait. It's very interesting when, from a perspective like ours, where I've done as much outside of health as I have inside of health, when the customer is a patient and the commodity is their health or indeed their life, it's a very different way of looking at it. In fact, one of the things that I took from working with these guys is it's one of the only times that at a network level we've looked at latency, so the time it ultimately takes to get from A to B, because that can make the split decision between whether someone's health is better or worse. The only time historically I've had that type of discussion is for trading floor, and it's fantastic to hear a similar discussion with such a different output. So again, it's for them, that foundation for change, quick change, resilience, reliability, it has to be in place. It has to be a software-driven approach, a faster-driven approach to a foundation to allow them to grow around that. So, creating and maintaining a foundation. So what does this ultimately look like? So, looking at our green cloud in the middle, and not to bore you too much with technical bits and pieces around what a network would look like. A network for digital transformation has to be fundamentally different to everything that's gone before. I know that's a bold statement. I am aware that, of course, there will be many telcos and internet providers, of course, will talk about physical pipes and this, that, and the other. Yes, everything is still driven on physical pipes, but we need to drive into those providers an innovation that means we can't wait 90 days for a pipe to be delivered. We can't use the internet all the time just because it's a commodity choice when there's no service level around it. We need a blend of options, and we need them now. And the foundation should be one of those things that we don't know exists, because it's just there, it works, it functions, and it allows all of those things that are the tactile and the real tangible benefits of the digital transformation. The foundation, like when building a house, is not the bit you look at. One looks at the concrete base and the rubble that goes under, but without it, the house collapses. We collectively need to drive that desire and not accept the fact that there are still long lead times. There are very cumbersome approaches to this. Ultimately, that can be delivered by software that sits on top of hardware, on top of that pipe work, of which we have a vast amount in the United Kingdom. So, the pipes are already there. So what does, as we start to branch that just one step further, what does that then allow us to look at as what our digital transformation can ultimately be? Well, it allows us to make greater use of cloud. Okay, we know that cloud is the one thing that we will hear almost certainly every day. Cloud, we need to use cloud. I would take us back to a sort of buyer beware situation with cloud. When we talk about cloud, typically we mean public cloud. So we mean the kind of the big boys like AWS, Azure, Google, Oracle, those guys. I would take us back to the first point about tech being an enabler. Be careful not to get drawn into using technologies that don't meet the requirement. Don't retrofit a requirement around a cool technology. There are amazing cloud technologies out there. It can't be undersold. However, make sure that those are absolutely the right way around. And also, again, an observation I would make is don't feel that you have to or you should only embrace one cloud. There's lots of options out there. You should be able to make a decision based on what is actually best for those individual requirements. Equally important, for want of a better term, use of non-cloud. We've got caught in a world where we think that cloud is only the right answer. It's the only right answer. It's not. Often there are use cases and examples of where physical tin, hosting in on-premise data centers, keeping equipment closer to home, be that, for example, in the hospital as opposed to outside of the hospital or something else. I'm sure we can think of many examples. It shouldn't be dismissed. As a rule, it's not a 50-50 thing, but it's not something that should be dismissed. It is not wrong to think, well, actually, I think we have a better answer to the solution outside of cloud. It isn't all about cost. Yes, cost is king. It allows us to do so much more. If we can reduce cost, then we can take that money and add value in other areas, of course. But cost optimization, ironically, comes with its own price. Cloud, another good example. I'm not saying that cloud is a bad thing. I'm really not. It's a very, very positive thing. But cloud is still in its infancy. Public cloud is in its infancy and can actually become very expensive if you don't keep it under a very tight monitor and a greater understanding of what you're achieving there. Also, sometimes adding value, which of course means cost goes up, means you can get significantly more value for minor increases in cost, be that taking data feeds or being able to take those flows and analyze them and then make decisions based on those analytics. There's lots of ways we can look at that. Right tool for the job. Make sure that you are ultimately taking what you need for the reason you need it. Again, back to tech being an enabler, but making sure that you're taking the right thing. Again, part of that digital transformation and part of the foundation of what we're building for it is this ultimately what I need? I've seen far too many people that get drawn into technologies and vendor-based decisions that really don't need to be there. Again, good examples would be, unfortunately, cloud, where people will make decisions about being in or with a certain cloud provider, which is largely based on marketing and advertising rather than understanding and assessing the decision. And this leads to the creation of choice. Wrapping this up with the foundation, again, is the foundation. You should almost never know it's there. When it works at its best, it allows you to do all of these things around the perimeter of this diagram here without even really knowing what's going on in the middle. It just allows you to do that. It gives you those many choices that you can make. Ultimately, you should be in control of being able to do those things immediately. Again, coming back to the pre-post COVID, the reactive, how we have reacted as an industry, as a sector, as a country is fantastic. Being able to carry that forward, but from a proactive perspective, is really the goal and driver. I think not just for us, for everyone, for the benefit of us as citizens, for the benefit of the health service, and it's something that we should be demanding of the likes of me and people in the industry I'm in, rather than waiting for it to arise. So that is me wrapping that up. I know we've got some time for some questions. So if there are any questions, I'd be welcome to take them now. I know that we have a couple of guys about today as well. I'm always happy to take questions.
Thank you very much, Justin. Yeah, we've got a few coming through. So as mentioned, delegates, we have got a fair few minutes now, so please do get the questions coming in for Justin, but we'll start with a few that we've already had through. So can you discuss the data protection that the system provides, Justin? Obviously, you're holding quite a lot of data there. So can you discuss the data protection you've got in place to ensure that data stays secure?
Yeah, so data. So when we're talking about like from a GDPR type perspective, or of course outside of GDPR, just general patient data or whatever you've got, one of the things that gets mixed from a network perspective and a storage perspective is about data at rest and data in transit. So when we look at a network, we're looking at data in transit. So none of the payload data is actually stored. You should always feel that if the data is moved in an encrypted fashion, then ultimately it should not be intercepted. If you have it intercepted, so it's decrypted, looked at, re-encrypted, then of course there is the potential to look at it. Or if it's not in an encrypted protocol, however, you should expect that data is never stored. So the actual data storage is an onus that is essentially put on the application providers and services of the cloud and data center bits at the edge.
Brilliant, thank you, Justin. What's the procurement process and cost implications?
For networks generally, or cloud gateway?
Yeah, well, they're not specified, but I assume it's the cloud gateway in general, really. You've got insight into kind of how. So, for instance, I assume they're asking a similar question to if someone was to go ahead today and want to commission you directly, how would that kind of look? Is there much clinical disruption at all? How is it implemented?
Yeah, so the sort of the quick fire boring commercial answer would be that we as a company are available on all of the sort of major frameworks, things like G-Cloud, RM3825, Spark. From a disruption perspective, because the way we deliver this is that any and all hardware, which can't go away, all of the pipes, the tin, and all that is pre-provisioned. So all of the connectivity into the HSCN, all of the core of that network, the cloud provision, it is all there. For us, it's simply about, because it's built in software, it's about pushing a button and it creates a cloud gateway. Now, it depends on exactly what that customer's need is, and we would look to work with them, but there's actually very minimal disruption. I mean, without going into even a sort of still quite a high level of tech, most potential customers would already be on the HSCN, which means they would use that to just pop straight into us. That's a minute-based routing change. And if they're not, we could make provisions across the internet or private pipes, and often that's delivered in hours as opposed to, like I say, months.